think I tweeted about a couple of weeks ago that I can't read without my reading glasses, so I'm going to have a tough time. But I'll act like I'm able to read everything, and you'll pretend like you're able to also process everything. All right. Good evening. Thank you, to the entire team of T-Hub. It's always a pleasure. It's always great, a feeling of great pride when I come back to T-Hub because it's like seeing your kid growing up. PJN was just telling me, he was very fondly reminiscing that on 2000, was it? Right, 6th June. See, the state of Telangana was formed on the 2nd of June 2014. And I think exactly 2 days or 3 days later, myself and my then IT secretary, Harpreet Singh, and there was somebody else, I don't remember who. We were all at ISB, the Indian School of Business. And then we had a meeting with PJN and his team of Triple IT. We had Ajit was then, Ajit Rangnekar, I don't know where he is now. Is he here? Rangnekar was the dean of ISB. And then there was a bunch of us, including Srini and others, who all, initially sat there, were trying to process, understand a little bit about innovation, try and understand, what needs to be done in Hyderabad, etc. One of the questions very innocuously that I asked, I think that may have been very naive at that point of time to all those who gathered around. I said, what is the X factor that Bangalore has, which Hyderabad doesn't? Why is it that we see, this whole coinage of Silicon Valley and, a city of startups, etc., etc., that entire sheen around Bangalore, not in Hyderabad and other cities. So then we started thinking. We said, what are the elements that Hyderabad is missing? And then, we started thinking, and then that's how PJN was gracious. He said, we have a bare shell in Triple IT campus that you can use to set up possibly India's largest technology incubator. So that's how the whole concept of T-Hub evolved over a couple of hours of conversation. And I was super delighted because, PJN offered me something that was readily available almost. All we needed to do was basically spruce it up, do up the interiors and get going. So that's how 2015, on the 5th of November, exactly 7 years ago, the first building of T-Hub was launched. Once it came into being, I think it spurred a lot of chatter, it spurred a lot of conversations, it spurred a lot of very interesting discussions among the youngsters, among entrepreneurs, among the startup community that a government is actually driving. Because if you look around the world, very, very rarely do you see governments actually playing the role of enablers. Governments typically come out with policies. Governments typically come out with regulatory compliances. In fact, governments more often than not end up being stiflers. If you look at what's happening in the Web3 and crypto world today, I think you would agree with me. Governments typically end up being the stiflers of innovation in a lot of ways. Because, typically we tend to say, okay, this is not right, that is not right, and, you should not be doing this, there are lines you don't cross, etc., etc. That kind of tends to put a huge roadblock on innovation. But in our case, what we did was we put together a cross-sectional team with the best minds from the government, industry, and academia coming together to build a truly world-class institution. And today when PJN was complimenting me and telling me that, he fondly remembers and recollects days we had met in 2014, I am also equally proud and equally happy that it is shaped up so well and, so beautifully. But I think as MS put it, where is he? Right. So much to grow. And I don't think I'll have the luxury of calling my state a startup state for very long, because the state has now been around for 8+ years. So I think there comes a time when you have to start growing up also. Can't be called a startup anymore. So therefore, my ambition and our ambition, I think collective ambition of all of us should be to really scale that summit and to make Hyderabad truly, I wouldn't want to call it a Silicon Valley, somewhat of an equivalent of a Silicon Valley. And now I do believe that we also have done some good work, and therefore we are rated by Startup Genome Report among the top 10 cities in the global ecosystem in the affordable talent. We are rated also by the same report among the top 15 in the Asian ecosystem for funding. We are also rated among the top 15 in the global ecosystem for bang for buck category. I think that really matters and deserves a big round of applause. Not just to T-Hub, not just to the T-Hub team here, but to the entire startup ecosystem in Hyderabad. I think we have just started. I think we really have a long way to go, but I think the start has been good. The begun is, like they say, well begun is half done. The awards ceremony that we just concluded also showcased some of the best and brightest of our startups at various stages of their life cycle in a wide spectrum of sectors, because I was looking at food tech companies, I was also looking at construction tech startups, space tech, people in retail, so robotics. Very, very impressed and personally delighted with the depth of the startup ecosystem that has been shaping up in Hyderabad and Telangana. But I do believe that this recognition that was just conferred will also further enthuse the 6,000 plus startups in Hyderabad and Telangana to actually have larger goals and larger ambitions and to be best in the class. Happy to also share with you that, like MS said, wherever I go, whenever I showcase the T-Hub building, the question that I get asked is, beyond the cool interiors and the very cool, ultra Uber exterior, what have you achieved? That's the question I keep getting asked. I think the biggest takeaway for me and for the government has been, while we have spent hundreds of crores, funding this world's largest technology incubator, the biggest takeaway for me and a personal delight for me has been the impact T-Hub has been able to create on the startup ecosystem. It's not just the incubatees here. It's not just the startups who've come here, who've gotten funding, which also is quite good. But I think the impact of T-Hub has not just been felt in Telangana alone, but it has now become sort of a role model to the rest of the country. We have ministers from various states in India coming to us, asking us. Srini was just telling me how our MOU that we signed with Goa government back in 2017, if I remember correctly, or 2018, with the then Chief Minister Lakshmikant Parsekar, who was also the IT Minister then, is now shaping up rather well and is now actually, giving room for Goa also to start working on something very similar to T-Hub. Likewise, we have had another 8 different Indian states who had come forward, who actually wanted to learn, understand how T-Hub was done by the government and how this actually can become an exemplar for their states as well. We've impacted more than 2,000 startups through various programs and initiatives, that is T-Hub alone, approached over 600 corporates for innovation programs, and have created a pool of more than 100 plus mentors who are tasked with nurturing the next generation of entrepreneurs. We're happy to share also that till date, more than 1.9 billion US dollars in funding has been raised by T-Hub cohort startups. The world-class infrastructure, supported by a strong ecosystem, is attracting entrepreneurs from across India. We also have fruitfully collaborated with many key partners and government entities such as Department of Science and Technology, Niti Aayog, IDEX, MeitY, corporates, academic institutions such as ISB, IIT Hyderabad, various other IITs, NALSAR, and also ecosystem enablers such as TIE, HICIA, FTCCI, etc. And we also, of course, by way of collaboration, have coordinated and collaborated with a number of other incubators from across India and across the world as well. T-Hub also represents not just the entrepreneurial zeal, but also the values we cherish, values of integrity, humility, excellence, collaboration, and of course, innovation. By bringing all these jigsaw pieces of the puzzle together, we aim to break the silos and ensure that Hyderabad is the go-to place for any entrepreneur in India and possibly by extension in the world as well. Very recently, I think last week, we've had the entire team of bureaucracy led by our Chief Secretary, do a workshop here, a day-long workshop in T-Hub, which was hosted by my very able Principal Secretary, Jayesh Ranjan. I would like to thank him because, the feedback I've gotten with Jayesh's presentation and the entire ecosystem's participation, particularly being led by T-Hub, was so good. In fact, one of the principal secretaries wrote a message to me saying, typically in the world of bureaucracy, innovation is a word that we don't hear very often. And when we were at T-Hub and when we interacted with all the startups, now we are excited to also elevate our game. We are excited also to bring in the innovation angle into our sphere of work so that we can contribute more to this state that has been growing brilliantly. Our finance, Special Chief Secretary Finance called me particularly, and he told me something very, very exciting. He said, the state of Telangana, gross state domestic product has increased from 5,06,000 crores in 2014 to 11.55 lakh crores in 2021. But what he said was something even more exciting. He said, sir, we grew at 11% on an average, despite COVID, despite a lot of other challenges. But he said, if we can only grow 4% more by way of, and if that 4% can come by way of incremental innovation, then this 11.55 lakh crore of GSDP can become 30 lakh crore in the next 5 years. So that is the ability, that is the kind of tangential intervention that innovation can bring in, even into government. So I'm super delighted that not only has the private sector and youngsters and startups have been enthused and impacted by T-Hub, even the governments, we are typically called the most jaded, in the political class, the bureaucracy. We get laughed at, we get scoffed at. We are not taken very seriously by the startup community. But I can tell you, even we are kicked up about the whole idea of bringing in the element of innovation into our sphere of life. And I've been saying this many times, but let me say it again. For all the startups in T-Hub, I have promised you before, and I have asked my Chief Secretary and Principal Secretary IT as well to reiterate, and I'll reiterate again on my personal behalf as well. Government will be your first customer. We will give you a proof of concept should there be that need. So please reach out to us. But the expectations of us are huge. Like MS said, we have just reached the base camp and we have built beautiful buildings, infrastructure, platform for young Indians to come innovate. But I think since the expectations in terms of impact, expectations in terms of the sustainable enterprises that are created, number of jobs most importantly, because we are a growing country, a growing economy, growing state, we need more and more jobs being created. Because as we all know, today's startup is tomorrow's large MNC, which creates millions and millions of jobs. Complex societal problems being solved by way of innovation, even complex problems of governance being addressed in terms of better citizen grievance redressal. So, all in all, the expectations are high, and my compliments to the entire team of T-Hub, to all those who work from day one, to the team that's working now. Onwards and upwards, and I look forward to many, many more anniversaries and many, many more of these celebrations. Thank you. Jai Telangana.
Thank you so much, sir, for those wonderful words of inspiration. We will surely one day be better than Silicon Valley.